Welcome back, everyone, to Highness Talk, the Royal Podcast, where we are talking about health, wealth, well-being, and this obviously crazy thing we call life. I'm Sydney.
I'm Tawny.
I'm Nina.
And we welcome you all back.
Hello.
And to new viewers, we welcome you. We are a crazy bunch of gals, and let's just get into it. This episode, we are going over ego death, if you've ever heard of that term. Also, the dark night of the soul. If you haven't heard of those terms, you're in for a great treat.
It's so exciting.
This is gonna be, we're gonna try to keep it as light as possible, but if there are tears, please. It's not like that all the time. Come back, please. We're really just trying to help you. Help us help you. So, like I said, I would love to go into it a little bit more with y'all on what is an ego death. I and the rest of us would like to know.
So the last episode, we talked about just the ego, period, identifying what that is, defining it, and came to the conclusion and understanding that it's really was created and formed. It was a part of us that was designed and created to help us protect ourselves.
Agreed.
All of the things that we have experienced in our life from childhood and throughout our life, anytime that we had situations that came up, defense mechanisms, all of these things to create a barrier because our inner child, our inner self is like, I don't want to feel that again. So how can I put myself in position to eliminate the threats and the harm coming my way? Mm-hmm. Now, when we get into the death of the ego, it is, now that we've identified it, that it's an actual thing, acknowledging it, it's understanding that that does not have to be the case. That does not have to be how you live out your life, how you're filtering things out. That is why healing is such a huge important factor, because it's helping to get to the root of the issues, address them. But with that, you are now stepping into another frame of life, because everything that you've built to create yourself to be safe is now a transition or a shift, and that part of you is actually dying, and that's why it feels like a death, because you're literally being rebirthed into a new way of being, a new identity, a life that looks completely different. I'm not basing how I do love, how I feel love, how I demonstrate it, how I have connections, what I think is accepting, what I think is validation. All of those things that we've built up leading to this point now could shift and alter and adjust. With that, now my friends are changing, what I may be doing for a living changes. All of these things change because it's going to match the evolution that's taking place. And this is why we call it the ego death.
Okay, gotcha. That helped me a lot, so thank you. And it does remind me of something that I read about, making these changes, and it's still change.
Yeah.
Like, change is still change. Like, the body cannot distinguish whether it's a positive change or a negative change. And so, yeah, our subconscious gets into this, like, oh my God, we're changing. We're not surviving anymore. Like, now we're actually living, and we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So that's a great, another definition for you.
So one thing that I want to pick up and go as a little bit further in that is a comment that we made last time, which was the fact that Nina will be moving. And so I made the comment that sometimes it's a process of grieving, but nothing was bad that happened. Like, where she lives now is not bad, where she's going is not bad, but there's a grieving process. And I say that because you're going from one state to another, and so you're going to miss the friends that you had in that space and spending time with them all the time, or maybe your coworkers and all those different things. you're going to miss that space in that time, and it's kind of a grieving and a sad. Like, one chapter of my life is over, and I'm going to a new chapter. Neither were bad, but I can still grieve the loss of the old.
Yes. Anything you want to add?
No, I agree with her.
Okay, so we're moving on.
Well, what's the next word that we've heard is dark night of the soul. So, one thing that I would like to kind of bring up to, I think, help clarify too with the dark night of the soul is duality. Because a lot of times we're always taught, be positive, be love and light, say all these positive things over yourself, which all of those are great. But there also is another aspect to ourselves.
Right.
Where we have a dark side, we have dark emotions, we have negative thoughts sometimes. What do we do with all of that? It is a part of us. So I kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts as far as duality and dark night. Like, what does dark night of the soul mean to you guys?
Well, I think for me, I feel like it's not, honestly for me, like in my experience with it, it was me not recognizing that I could no longer like do what I like, be myself, like, or that way of being in that moment. Like I was changing. And so as I was changing, it just like, it kind of, I mean, I'm not a therapist or anything like that. It felt like a sense of depression for me. And I know a lot of times if you are aware of the dark night of the soul, a lot of people do compare it to a depression. And I was having like a lot of anxiety, and as you were touching on those, you know, that body reacting, I didn't know I was going through that, because during my dark night I was just like trying to push through and be positive. So I'd be like crying in my car. By the time I'd get out of my car, I'd be like, okay, I'm ready for work. Like, you know, kind of putting that mask. But then the more that I tried, the worse it was getting. And I was like numbing myself with tree because it made me happy. So I could like mask that for a while, mask it. So I think for me, the dark night is just acknowledgement in its own right, like acknowledging both, like you said, both sides of yourself, and then being able to regulate yourself into what you're becoming after.
Okay.
That was good.
It was.
Thanks.
It was. So, okay, so before we even started recording, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna say.
I had no idea that.
I didn't. Yeah, like I was like, I never really considered having gone through a dark night of the soul, because I just figured, well, you know, and looking back, like my journey has always been just a continuous evolvement. I didn't really know of any period that was just depression in terms of inner work. But when you say that, like, I went through a serious depressive, high functioning kind of thing, and it came after I broke up with person and moved back in with my mom, like all of that. Like, I blamed all of that happening, not knowing what direction I want to go in with my life. All throughout school, like from being a child, all through high school, some college, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I was depressed about that, like being the age that I am, not knowing what the hell I want to do. I'm starting this spiritual journey, and I definitely wanted to incorporate that, but what about this, that, and the third, and all of these things, and I never really thought of it as a dark night of the soul. It was just like, I was going through some shit, like So when you say it like that, I was like, oh man, like I resonate with that. Like I definitely had that, especially high functioning. Like I had to always be doing something. I'm working a job that it did help a lot in my healing process. It
Mhm.
really, really did, the people there, but it was kind of just like, what are you doing there? Like, seriously, what are you doing there? And I was unhappy the majority of the time, go home crying every other day, and it was hard. It was really bad. I mean, not bad, but just like
you don't recognize it when you're in it.
Yeah,
You
like
don't.
I mean, this was a couple years ago. Like I just even like just now, I never put it to dark night of the soul, because it was like, well, I blame this breakup, moving out, back in my mom's house, like.
Yeah. I think the only way I recognized it was because once I got into like the esoteric realm, people would like be saying it in like tarot readings, and as I was trying to figure out tarot, I started to recognize, ooh, okay, well, it resonates, it hits. So then, of course, like naturally, I'm curious. I'm gonna go on YouTube, figure like what are these things, and it was like everything that these like spiritual guides were like saying. I was like, check, okay, great. And then that's how I started. What about you, Tony?
So mine was a whole thing. Listen, I'm trying to tell y'all what. And what was the term that I think that you had just used? Oh, so with the Dark Knight, right? I want to break down and go into, I'm going to answer the question, but the fact of all the different terms, we're throwing out a lot of terms in a short amount of time. We're throwing out ego death, we're throwing out dark night of the soul. When people have also used the term like shadow work, all of that we are talking about is encompassed within that, because you are facing and addressing that shadow, that dark, that what is conceived to be negative aspect of yourself, and incorporating it and embracing it, learning how to be in balance with both aspects of yourself. And that's the process that we are talking about.
Right. Demons in the closet,
In
skeletons in the closet,
self-sabotage.
Yeah, they're all
They're all in there. It's all, and so much of your subconscious has to do with all of it.
Yeah. So for myself personally, I used to, I guess, growing up, I didn't have like a lot of emotions that would be surfaced, or I don't think that I expressed myself, or I didn't cry and feel all of these particular things. I felt pretty numb, actually. And I don't know if that was like a product of growing up or just who I thought that I was at the time within my personality. But all of a sudden in 2018, I met someone, and they're a very significant person in my life. And it was like, in meeting this person, they exposed to me all of my insecurities, all of my codependencies came rushing to my face, because it's like they were being triggered so much by this person. And I think it was, designed that way so that I would go into this space of healing. Because a lot of times we don't even acknowledge or realize, like, oh, I'm codependent, or this is, you know what I mean? And so it started, that was the beginning of my process, to just even like see all of these things happening. And I got into this huge anxiety thing of, wanting this person to feel the same way I did and all of these. And when they didn't, it just took me into like a tailspin. So I felt like God was telling me I need to like remove all my distractions and sit with myself. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get with that in a minute.
Oh, wait.
We get there when we get there.
It's a lifetime to live.
And that was my attitude, was like, all right. And then I heard it again, like, sit with yourself. And I'm like, I'm gonna do that like tomorrow or something, It sounds boring to me. I kid you not, it was so bizarre. I would go home from work and I would like look at movies or whatever on TV. My TV stopped working. I was like, yo, what the? So I go in my room and the TV in my room stopped working. How's two TVs
Stop working at the same time?
Stopped working at the same time.
Your power's out?
But everything else was, everything else was. So I was like, well, I guess today's the day then.
Right.
And it was probably for like, this was in 2018. It was probably for 3 months. I went into like literal isolation, and I felt more emotion than I ever felt in my entire life, all come at once. And I cried the most in that 3 months that I ever cried. Like, I cried so much that I felt like I didn't have any more, like, liquid in my body to cry out.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so, I guess I was experiencing all of those dark sides of myself. Mm-hmm. I felt hopelessness to another degree. I was like, I wasn't able to be in a functioning or high functioning depression. I was in a depression where I came home from work and I would go to sleep. Like, have the lights out, go to sleep. I felt suicidal, like, a lot, because I had no, like, in my mind, this was all just happening in my mind. I had no outer reasons necessarily for this to take place. I was just experiencing and addressing all of the things that were really going on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, like, the time where, previous to that, I would have reached out to somebody or at least been in somebody's presence or whatever and had that codependent fix.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to do that at this time. I didn't feel, like, peace with that. It was just sit with myself and my feelings and find out, where did all this come from?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where is this stemming from?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when all of, like, the inner child, the meditations, all of those began to come into play and help me work through the process and the journey.
Mm-hmm.
But it was hard and it was heavy.
Yeah.
Like, there was times I just literally felt like giving up, like, why am I on this planet type of thing. Like, it was so intense for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, mine will be a little different. And no, I don't think I've ever said a lot of those things out loud to anybody.
Oh, wow.
But the reason that I'm sharing now is because I want people to know that sometimes can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't want anyone to feel like they're alone in that, because I've experienced it and I know other people have as well. But I came out on the other side.
Do you think people experience it again?
I think there's levels to healing.
Mm-hmm.
It comes in cycles, and each time it comes around, it clears out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say, 'cause it's like, I'm still, like, I don't want it to come off like I'm still not in it. Like, I still feel like there's an ego death happening. Like, I just don't think, like I do feel like my, the dark night of the soul thing, I mean, maybe it can happen again. Not saying it can't. It probably can. But I'm just saying, I haven't experienced it since. I feel like breakups are one of your biggest triggers, or maybe losing, someone. When we're losing people in general, I think that's when we really, I don't know how that works, but I think that's when we really start looking at ourselves. Yeah. But I would say for me, I'm still doing my ego death process. It's like in phases and waves, and like each time it's like another layer, another level. It's like a video game, kind of like, oh, okay, I got this challenge, on to the next one. I'm like, when does it end? I don't think it does. Like, does it end? I don't think so. Like, I feel like every year I'm in a list of different things that are happening, and it's just another phase. Oh, you think you got it? No, let's go here because you didn't look at this part or that part. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you guys feel, but yeah.
No, I totally agree. I will say that I feel like this dark night of the soul can also be phrased as, or that you hear often, is rock bottom. Because seldom do you ever go back to rock bottom. Like, especially
you are facing, like, kind of the side. So.
In my experience, like, of course, healing, like I said, it's a whole evolutionary thing. You just keep getting, it's like a spiral. Like, you just keep getting higher. And, in this, where you're raising your vibrations and you're speaking different things over your life, especially through what we have been talking about since the first episode. So it's kind of like, if you are to have another, ego death or another dark night of the soul, it's on a different plane.
Exactly.
Now, like, and you have the tools and you have the things necessary within you to to sit with yourself and to come up with, you know, a solution or a game plan or something like in faster. You feel better about it. Like, and now I'm looking forward to these releases and understanding that everything happens for a reason and is a lesson in my greatest, you know, in the scheme of things. And like you said, like well, I thought I had this one. You missed a little bit, like, so it's coming back around, and it's just, and even with that, you use that past knowledge that you had the first time around, and it's like, oh well, I did this before, like I got it, it's fine. So I don't feel like we really go back to that really rough space anymore, because we make the conscious decision to not.
You know, I don't think we go back, but I would say, like, I'm definitely doing another ego death or a different type where it's like another phase. But I agree. I don't think you go back because that person invoked a specific thing. You're just going to see and I also feel like it's the trick of, like, not a trick, but, like, it's not a trick. But I also feel like I am spiritual, so I feel like, I don't know what you want to call it, God, divine source, the universe, whatever people want to claim it, that's on them. I'll just say God, or, I feel like he'll test you again, and it just won't be the same. It won't be the same person, it won't be the same thing, but your innate reactions, your triggers are the same, but you have to pick it up, like, you have to pick it up and pick it up. And I feel like I'm in a place where I'm getting mad that I'm not, I know it, but then I'm still triggered, and that's what's like, and then I'm like, don't be too hard on yourself. And then I'm like, but you knew better. And I'm just like, I knew better. And it was like, even at some point, because you said, well, I'll mention it a little bit later as we go back on the challenge, but I feel a little like frustrated because it was like, I knew it before a situation, like I knew I was going to be reactive before I even reacted. And it was like, I just had to experience to prove myself right. So you just got to experience it. You just got to go there, you know, just so you can, just so you can go back and, and I'm trying not to be hard on, take notes and just like, I feel like it's also teaching me how to be a little bit more compassionate on myself, because old me would be like, why would you do that? And like reprimand myself and everything. But I'm just trying to like, instead be more like kind to myself in this process. So maybe that's just the next layer to it. It's like, okay, you notice it, but how are you talking to yourself? How are you treating yourself? So I think, just talking honestly about where I'm at. Because I don't like to be like, oh, that was so, like, for me, it's not like it's so long ago. It's like, for me, it's just different phase. So reactive. It's great. I mean, I also love doing the work because it makes me closer to myself by like questioning myself. Why would you do that? Or what is this? And it's like, I feel like in that way, like, I'm not numbing myself by asking myself these questions, because it's not that it's easy to go back to the way things are, but it is comfort. It is comforting just to go back and be the old way, because you know it so well. It's your routine. So in disciplining yourself with like the new routines or a different way of being, or putting a grounding habit in there to like heal yourself, it's like, oh, I did that. It feels good.
I think that it is a process, and like you said, you have your times throughout that journey of, and we all do, you know, it's like I'm healing, but in the midst of that, I'm not always gonna respond the best way or the way that I want to, because of the comfort and the familiarity of, it's easy to go back to exactly what I know soothed me in that moment. But it's walking the path of, when you get to a space of honoring yourself above everything else and anyone else that is around you, then you will see your reactions and what you go to alter and shift. Because yes, I can run back to, you know, alcohol, drugs, relationship, whatever is soothing me in this moment that, you know, may not be the best for me. Or I can say, you know what, I deserve better. You know, I want to honor myself and know, like, these are the goals that I have, and I'd rather do those. Those are more priority than me going backwards or me even staying stagnant and stuck in one particular area, you know? So I think it always comes back to self, and how are we honoring ourselves? Because the choices that we make, the people we have around us, the reactions we have, the habits, they're all a reflection of how we are feeling about ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's always about how we're feeling. I tell everyone, we're mirrors to our people.
Yeah.
And when I look at like the relationships, it's a little hard because when you're doing the dark night of the soul or your shadow work, it's very, I mean, it's introspection. So you're not practicing with people, and so you do feel like, I remember I felt on top of the world, and actually nothing could, once I like got to this place, it was like, nothing's gonna get to me until like there's a person that can really like, you know, I have to practice it.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, it's like that noticing. So it's also hard if you're doing all that inner work and then you're confronted with this person who, I'm not saying they're a challenge. They don't have to be a challenge. It can be a really great learning process, or it can be really fun. It doesn't have to be.
But they challenge your new way of thinking.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, well,
how to navigate this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I'll touch on it a little bit later, but I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
So the aspect of attachment just came into my mind about this whole entire thing.
Yeah, because it is.
Yeah. It's learning how to have connections with things, and that's with a person or even things. Like, no, it is not bad to have a drink, but are you attached to drinking? Is this your, you know, your soothing mechanism? Is this what you do to suppress dealing with your issue? That's when it becomes an attachment and an issue. There's things that we can have in moderation that, hey, it's cool.
Yeah.
But is this something I'm using?
Right.
And then it goes the same way as in relationships with people.
Yep.
You can have relationships. Those are great. We are intended to connect with one another. But do you become so attached to a person that that's when you're starting to get triggered? Because if they do something that is triggering your abandonment or rejection or codependency, now it's a whole nother ballgame, because I've learned how to deal with certain things within myself. When you add another person or thing in the mix, and they trigger me again, no, maybe I did. It's exposing. Maybe I didn't, you know, go through all the areas. That's when you go to the next cycle of the healing. I got a little bit more. I still gotta.
Yeah, I think I'm there. I think I'm right there. Like what you're saying, like I'm there, because I mean, we can just kind of. I'm just gonna mention the challenge a little bit, which was we were supposed to observe ourselves, and I wasn't purposefully trying to observe myself, but I did start to notice that for me, in my like relationship, I was really annoyed that I wasn't getting certain attention, or that you're not valuing my time by giving me a time, because I don't like to waste time.
Yeah.
It's just not something I like to do. I want you to be respectful of it and just give me a heads up kind of thing. And I just recognized that the whole time I'm mad at this person because they're not giving me the attention or the time I feel I deserve, when really I'm not giving myself the time and attention I deserve.
Yeah.
And so there's this lady, I think her name's Byron Katie, and she does all of this, where someone will like write down what they feel about a person, reverse it, is it true? And then make you say it about yourself, and then you're like, damn. And so that's what I did this week. I literally just reversed how I felt about him and recognized, like, oh my God, it's on me. Like, it's me that's the one who wants the attention on myself that I'm not giving. And even though I do give myself attention, I would say, I think it's my waiting up for that person. Like, I have to stop until that person reaches out to me, or I don't know how to move my day without this person reaching. No, like, and it's weird because it's like, I'm not necessarily like that. Like in my previous relationships, I was very like detached, but in this one I'm finding myself attached because I'm relying on a certain aspect of that individual, when again, it's on me to rely on me. So that's what I realized from that challenge is like, yeah, a lot of times I just feel like the way I feel about others is really how I'm feeling about myself. So it is taking that step back and being like, is it too hard? Now, unfortunately, did I get into a trigger moment where I reacted? Yeah, I did. And so I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of that. But at the same time, I wouldn't be learning it now if I didn't go through that. So I think it's having to be easy and understanding that each wave that comes, you're learning, and I don't consider it a fail. I consider it a win because I've gained experience, or I've gained another level of acknowledgement in myself, awareness. Yeah, awareness just always continues. It just doesn't go away, and it's a good thing. I mean, we want to be aware of ourselves, and if not, then I feel like that's when we start looking at everyone else as the problem, or every experience we have. And that's why I do think it's so valuable to, in certain ways, I understand people have circumstances in life that they did not create, but I do believe, like, in terms of what we want for our lives, we can create that aspect moving forward.
I was gonna say, like, even the attachment law goes so far, and it's so rooted in our identity, because it goes with even jobs. We get so attached to, well, when you ask somebody, like, who are you? They usually tell you what they do. Because they have disassociated, like, their core being of a spirit being, and this is what I do for a living. It's like, I didn't ask you what you do for a living. I asked, who are you?
Yeah.
Most people don't understand the difference, because they become so attached that it became part of who they are. And that's why it's very... be mindful of labels that people give you, of diagnosis and all these. Not to say they're not real, but sometimes we get so dependent on it being our identity that we let it dictate how we're going to behave.
I think so too, because for instance, like, my dad would always be like, I have anxiety, and I was like, you have anxiety? I was like, and again, not a therapist, but I'm a realist, and if someone's coming to me, I just tell them how I feel. So this is just my thought.
Yeah.
He was like, I have anxiety. And I was like, no, there's an issue in your life that you're not handling that's causing panic attacks, because there's something in you where something, like, there's too much pressure, or there's something you're not acknowledging, or you're freaking out over a certain thing, which for him it was like a lot of weight being carried on him. So it made sense that he was having this, like, of course, where's the panic attacks? They're usually in the chest. So to me, it made complete sense that he was having these panic attacks when he has all this, like, weight, because, like, my grandfather died and he had to carry a lot of the responsibility. And so he, I think after that there's the grieving process, but it's all the weight that's carried on him to be the man of the house. Because he was going to go live with my nonna. He had to leave his independence to take care of her, because that's what he believes his responsibility is, right? And so I feel like it was just all that pressure that really, started to get to him. So eventually he completely cut his diet to, like, very significant diets. And he started, like, at first it was just walking, and then I'd be like, you can jog, you can just move your feet. And now he, like, jogs fully, or almost to a run, long distance jogging. So he now, like, he doesn't have panic attacks anymore.
Yeah.
But, like, what was it? It was him being able to ground himself out of being so in the head into an idea of an attachment.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is hard. And that's, like, with the Dark Night of the Soul, ego death, that's what's taking place, is, like, really identifying, these are all the places that I've made my identity and who I was. And now you're breaking away from that, and which is causing a new person to be born, because your life is going to look different. Just like there are people that they get so attached to their jobs, and especially within COVID and all of this, people have lost their jobs, and so they went through a process of, like, yo, who am I
without my title,
without what I was doing, because they were so dependent and so attached to that particular job. And I think a part of the Dark Night, a part of its purpose, is to get us to this place of non-attachment. I can be connected to everything, but I'm attached to nothing, which means my hands are always open for things to come and for things to go as they are meant to be. You know, when we have...
Can we just make that into an affirmation? Thank you. Can you repeat that?
It was beautiful.
It was. I was like, wait, I need that as my affirmation in the morning.
Well, like, if we look at the illustration, like, so this is my job, right? And so I'm attached to this job. And now your hand is closed, so nothing is flowing in or out because you're so attached to this. But now, if this thing is meant to go, it can go. If something's new meant to come, it can freely flow. You know? And so always just being open. Never attached to a person, place, or thing, because everything is temporary in life. And I'm not trying to sound like a dark cloud, but it's the reality of it.
I heard that you should change your job every 12 years.
I
don't know. I heard that somewhere. I was listening to, I think it was Earl Nightingale. He's the guy who did the book Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
And so he was talking about desire specifically, and how a lot of people, like, why they don't succeed is because they just hold themselves up to this one way of being. I just think that's a huge problem in the world, in America, that we're like told work through corporate and climb the ladder. And it's like you're molded into that from school. Like, just get good grades so we can make blue ribbon. And it's like we're held to these standards, especially in, I think, our generation, we were held to that standard. Don't know how the next generations are going to be with COVID. I think you're going to hopefully see some changes in the education system. No tea or shade on that, but, you know. Yeah, so I think growing up with, like, expectations just always placed on you is really difficult. Also teaches you discipline, and there's goods and bads to it both. I think there's a good and a bad. Like, one, it teaches you to really get involved, get focused. But for other kids, it could do the opposite, which was for me, just completely like, oh my God, a test again. Oh my God, I'm going to fail. Like, I suck at tests. And it was immediate. And I did suck at tests. But, like, you know, it's just like, there's nothing encouraging about taking tests. It was all about how's the school's rating going to look. And it's like, I'm not trying to make that as a thing, but it is like my attachment to school wasn't also really great, because it was always this attachment of failure if you don't get a good grade or you don't test well. You have to test well, the SATs. I heard they're taking out the SATs now. And like actually letting people do essays too, because some people just aren't, that's not one way of being educated, is by taking tests. But it's like letting go of the attachments of society, family, and those upbringings that we don't recognize because we're born into them. So it's hard. It's hard to know this stuff.
To them
and that's why the ego death and especially the Dark Night is so shattering, because you're just waking up like, I've been numb this whole time. Like, I've just been, where have I been? Like, why am I waking up right now? And I think a lot of us get annoyed that we didn't wake up sooner. Like, I'm kind of like, what?
That is a big thing. Yeah. That is super.
Why didn't I do this in, like, I wish, like, I was younger, but then I know, like, there's a reason I don't know, and I'm happy I'm doing it now. Like, I mean, I couldn't be, no tea or shade to 50-year-olds either. You're doing it now? Good for you, because, like, there are some who don't even do it ever. I mean, right? But, I mean, imagine, like, I mean, I'm only 28, and I have a lifetime to go with this process in, like, this tool in my box. Like, I have this tool to utilize and to remember. It's not, I'm not going to lose the memory. If I choose not to do the work, I'm honestly scared, because I know what that would lead to. That would lead to depression. That would lead to anxiety. So I know I have to do the work to evolve. There's no other choice for me. Like, that's literally how serious I take this stuff, because, and it's not, it doesn't have to be serious. It's just like, that's how, like, I know if I'm not meditating or doing something physical on my body or reading to grow my knowledge on a certain subject, that I'm stuck in a routine. That's not, where am I going? Where am I going if I'm not educating myself in some way, shape, or form? It's just, you're just going to end back up. So I'm glad I've learned it now. But there's also that part of like, damn, what if I would have been 20 and I figured all this out? What if I would have been 18 or 15? Because I did go through a numbness. I think I've been through it in different phases.
Yeah.
Once at the time there was no definitions. I don't know what happened in our early 20s or in our 20s where people started defining it, but in the teenage years I never heard of dark night of the soul, ego death, none of, right? Okay, so I didn't hear any of these terms. So I just woke up one time. Again, it was Earl Nightingale. Wow, that's so crazy. It was Earl Nightingale on Spotify, Think and Grow Rich, and I started getting involved in a network marketing company. But those network marketing, yeah, they could be a little bit schemy, but they teach you how to just believe in yourself and how what you bring about, what you believe you bring about, and like just that like education on how powerful your creative process really is in the mind. And if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't have recognized how negative of an individual I was. And I know, like, it's okay if you have, you know, I'm not saying don't be like that, be positive, but if I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't be on that next phase of getting into my spirituality. So I feel like I went twice with it, but different ways. First was, okay, you have an outlook on life that's positive. Like, that was my early 20s, like, okay, you don't need to know where you're necessarily going, but you do have to change your behavior and where you're going, because your behavior is holding you all the way back from who you really are. Like, I'm really not a person who wants to say no to life. And I was like, no, can't do that, can't do this, overweight, unhappy. Time I got to my 20s, I was like, I can do anything, you know, kind of approach. So
can we talk about that further? Because you can't change your behavior until you change your mind. And so it is changing the narrative over your life.
I think for me it was hard to recognize my behavior. I was so like that dark night. The reason why I feel like that had to happen was once I let go of that relationship, because I had this positive attitude, but I had a relationship where, well, I didn't recognize it till the end of that relationship that my behavior needed to change, but my attitude was changing. So I guess if we're like defining it, attitude was changing, behavior was the same, and it wasn't working. So once I got out of that relationship, I even remember like telling him, like, I'm mad because now you're gonna put me through so much work that I shouldn't have to do. That's what I said.
So you were really mad at yourself because you didn't do it previously.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, let's go back to what it, like, that thing which you're really mad about is what, no, but it really was. I was mad because I knew he was my comfort. Yeah. He was my comfort, and it was just like, it was so comforting just to have that person always there, always, not like being there to listen to you, but not making you look at yourself. So it was great. It was just like always, you're great.
A great Band-Aid.
It was a great Band-Aid. Yeah. So then once we parted, I was so mad. I mean, well, it also depends on how, but I'll just say it. I was cheated on. So for me, there was a lot of humiliation, anger, you know, all of those things that come up, you know, and so being cheated on, like, took time for me to get over. And I did mention this earlier, but I did go to therapy for maybe like 3 or 6 months, which was really great because she started teaching me breathing techniques and started questioning me on life. And it didn't last forever. You know, it wasn't like, let's keep talking about the same problem over and over again. It was like once I healed from recognizing the relationship and knowing it wasn't going to move forward, it was like, okay, so how do you move forward? But I couldn't move forward without having my behavior change. So that's what I feel like I've been doing since being 24. So it's taking, I just want to say like my age so that you guys can understand, like, my process isn't instant. My process wasn't, it's very slow. It's not slow moving, but it's progressing.
Yeah, it's gradual. So when I said change the narrative, because it's tied to what we previously believed. And so in a certain space and time, you believed, and I'm just using this for an example of the relationship. You believed it was cool to have this other person to comfort you. Yeah. Then your narrative change is like, oh, I have to comfort myself. And then you have the reactionary of, now my behaviors look different because I have a new narrative. Right. And that can go across the board as what we've talked about with what am I identifying myself with? Because previously my narrative was that I do this particular job, or this is how my relationship should look. And now when my narrative changes, what I accept in my life now changes as well. You know?
So what do you say to someone who's like, I don't know what my purpose is, or I don't know where I'm going? What do you say to that, like when you're coaching people?
I don't think that it's the way that a lot of people take it. Number one, they try to make it a real complex thing, and then they try to also chase it. And I don't think either one of those, in my personal opinion, are appropriate. Like I tried that way. I tried to chase it. Like I was so frustrated with God. I'm like, because I have a very logical side. If you just told me what I'm supposed to do, I could help you. Like help me help you. You know.
Right.
But it's like I wasn't getting it. It was just that I had to learn faith and learning to take the next step and the next step, not knowing what was the next thing to come. And the moment that I surrendered in just, I am going to be not attached to anything, and I'm just going to take the next step that I feel guided to, it was in that exact moment when I bumped right into clarity on what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is how it works. Like, I had very much clarity when I was supposed to quit my job, and I had a moment with God. Well, I was like, it was very, I was meditating at that point, so it was very visual. And it was a very let go process. And then, I agree with that. I think it just takes time to let it run in. And I think it's a little bit, for me, it's very frustrating and very triggering sometimes for me when I see people be like, I can help you find your purpose. Like there's literally like people, and I've probably bought into it many times. And I think it's really hard.
Take a free quiz.
Yeah, and there's like mentors out there who I actually think they're great mentors, and I love what they're doing, but I still think it's trigger effective too in a way that I don't like, and I think people should change the way that they do business. Not all. I think there are a lot of businesses changing, but using something that they know is going to really hit you and create an emotion in you. And I think for a lot of us, we don't come into life knowing exactly what we want to do, and that's a big question. And so how you said, like, you gradually, once you let go, it kind of found you. I agree that I think that's the way that it goes. And so I find it when I'm watching this stuff and people are like, I can help you find your purpose. Like, no, because that part is gradual. If someone already found the purpose and you needed help maybe in your structure, that's a different thing.
But yes and no, because I think honestly, what we are doing with the steps in this podcast is the same thing that I do with my clients. I can't help you say, I'm going to uncover your purpose. This is what it is. No, but I can walk you and guide you through the process of finding yourself, which means then you're going to end up finding your purpose. So ultimately I can. However, I do completely agree that people market it.
Exactly what I'm trying to say.
And that is across the board. That is a issue that we're going to have, and that we have not just with this. People do what sells, and what people play on people's weaknesses. A huge thing is, why am I on this earth? And people that
it's
are
the number one question.
Right.
Like if someone was like, what is one question you want to ask God, or if you could ask the universe, what would it tell you? It's like, I'm pretty sure you'd want to know, why am I here? What's your soul purpose?
But you have to understand how companies and brands, they play on that. They play on people's emotions. And that's how they market. And that's why I have such a huge issue, because people within my own self, people have told me, you need to market this way, you need to do this, you need to do this.
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't, because it doesn't,
because it's not for me.
Yeah, it doesn't match. Like, I don't want to manipulate anyone or try to play on anyone. I am very aware of what could grab somebody. However, I will not do that to somebody, because I know the side, like, I know I can get I know I can get your money if I tell you X, Y, and Z.
Right.
You know?
But that's not intention. That's not your intention.
That's not my intention. That's why I don't do it.
Exactly.
But people have, if you see in the mainstream marketing, there is a formula. Do X, Y, and Z. This is how we put up our images, because we know this is what catches your attention. They're all playing to our emotions and our weaknesses.
Like
and
the meeting we had.
They will get people's money every time. Like, that's why a lot of those relationship gurus do so well. They're playing on people's emotions.
Yeah, and that's another thing with relationship gurus. There's just not one box of a way a man or woman or whatever your sexual, whatever you go by. I don't know what you call it. Your
Sexual
pronouns. But no, whatever your pronouns are. I'm sorry. Whatever your pronoun is, they play on that, and there's just not one box way to date someone. Like, I know how to get you. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, there's like
stop falling for this.
Right. Unsubscribe.
It's actually like, and instead it should be like, let's get to know you, like, you know, or let's work on you. It's like, let's figure out how I can get this boy to fall in love with me. Like, wait, what? Like, what?
It's
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a huge thing that plays on people's minds and leads into depression, because people will set it up as in a box structure. You meet someone, and if they're interested in you, you should be dating in 3 months. You should be official. Like, they have these timelines and guidelines, and when someone is out there dating and it's not happening that way, now they're like, what's wrong with me? Why can't?
Yeah.
Right.
But when each and every person's journey is going to look different, and you may be in a space where you're supposed to be focusing on yourself, and you're out here trying to like be frustrated because a relationship, it's not even time for you to be in a relationship at the moment.
Amen.
I think for me it's like the opposite. It's like I've been so comforted by myself that I think I don't know how to work with, like, okay, I'm independent, I've been on my own, now I have this relationship. It's like, oh, you have this thing, you wanted it, okay, here it is, and I'm like, like, you know, like
too much work.
It's like you built such a routine on your own that it's actually really hard for me to like give that up.
Yeah.
To give up like all the, like, I feel like, and it's not true. It's not true that I have to give up the work I've done on myself just because I'm in a relationship or I'm with someone. So it's recognizing like, okay, so now I can focus still on me, but now you have to factor in and balance the relationship versus you. And I think a lot of us, like independent single girls out there, that's like the hard part. Unless you're like, I know some girls who've like really like they you know, I'm a relationship person too. I think everyone is in their own right. But like, you know, been in one relationship to the other. And there's nothing wrong with that because I know like my friend, for instance, she's in a relationship, but she figured herself out within that relationship. And aside from her partner, like just did complete her own thing while she just let him be who he was.
Yeah.
I don't think for me I could have ever done that. Like I don't think I could have ever been in a partnership and taken that.
I mean,
okay,
I'm
gonna.
Yeah. That is commendable. I mean, would have been cool them doing it together. That's what, you know, relationships are about.
Two people are just not on the same level. And I think
I mean,
you
yeah,
start to notice
when you put it like that, of course. But I'm just saying, like, it's a beautiful thing to see people being able to do that in a relationship. Because I know I couldn't.
Yeah.
I don't like people. Like,
yeah, she's the nicest.
That's
like, I don't like.
That's the statement.
Pretty much. No, I'm just like, I don't like being. How do I say this? Vulnerable is a good word, but not the word that I want to use. But we'll go with that for right now. I don't like being around other people as I'm being vulnerable with myself.
Yeah, because it's like,
put it like that.
Because like, it may be hard for
like that's not your responsibility. Is how my mind is processing.
I completely get it, because for me it's like being vulnerable was not easy for me to do. Been worked through. The more that I'm unlayering myself, the vulnerability gets easier, because I realized by being more vulnerable, you're letting go and you're surrendering to allowing love in, because I think all of this comes down to who we truly are. And that this is just my belief, is that we're truly just love in itself, love in its rare form. But I think, like you said, through all that as we go up as children, we have this idea that everyone's going to love me and accept me, and people actually project on children a lot of the times.
Yeah.
I mean, we all,
That's not
you
talked
know,
about enough.
yeah, our parents project, our teachers project, our grandparents, everyone around us is projecting, and we of course don't understand what's going on, and we're taking it as something's wrong with me, and it's immediately coming down this acceptance piece, which is really hard. It's really hard to accept ourselves.
I just saw a video, someone speaking about this. As children, we were forced to deal with our emotions at a too young of age, where we don't even understand our emotions, and we are supposed to, self-soothe at an age where we don't even know what that is, but we're expected to. And that is the craziest realization. I didn't even think about it, even in all the episodes we've done. We are expected to self-soothe from a young age, to where what's the soonest you felt that you actually handled self-soothing?
Appropriately? Or
I was gonna say recently. It's I'm just doing not even recently.
literally.
Healthily.
Yeah, recently.
I don't think
within the last few years.
I don't think my family really know, emotions aren't a thing.
Yeah.
So it's not talked about, it's repressed. And I was also listening to something where during the age of the 80s, or around those time frames, there was that it's okay, let them cry. Let the baby cry. Now it's told, no, they need to be regulated on a schedule where they recognize, you're actually trying to soothe the baby. Whereas before in the 80s, or even probably forever after it was let your child cry.
Leave them alone to cry. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's actually a thing where they say, no, now they're don't just let them cry, try to regulate it, because they're probably crying because they're not getting enough sleep, where their eating regulation is off. So this also comes back into the form of discipline and habit. Did your mom do those regular habits as a child? So it can stem all the way from birth, because you didn't have the nurturing of being able to discipline yourself, or to regulate yourself, like you say that they say now you should be doing. So
it's crazy, and I've had a conversation, and I think this woman's in her late 70s, right? And she even told me one time that there's a particular thing that her mother told her growing up, or her aunt or someone, and she was holding on to that phrase that she was told all of these years into her 70s and 80s, and it has been dictating how she goes about life.
Yeah, same.
And it's I can pinpoint certain exact statements and phrases that were said to me, and same. Why I am the way that I am. And it's we don't realize, we can see well, I just do this because no, we can actually pinpoint this is a phrase that was said, and now I've been living my life to not hear this phrase again.
One thing that I listened to was Florence Shin, your word is your wand. And it's truly, your words are very magical, because what you think about is what you say, and you're repeating the process day in, day out. And even in Think and Grow Rich, that's what I'm saying. They taught you, if you want to think like a rich person or grow rich, then you got to think it, you got to keep it in you. It's got to be everywhere for you to bring it about. And it's it really just works just like that. And I don't think people believe it. They think it's all fa, it's not real. Right. It's real, because real. Think about the things you said as a kid, and now where are you?
Right.
It's very similar.
And even what did your parents speak over you?
Right.
Yeah, that's why the power of affirmation is just so important. For me, it's honestly a daily thing. I have to go through a set of affirmations.
Yeah.
It needs to be embedded in my thought that I'm replacing old things that don't sit with me anymore.
Right. And throughout the day.
Yeah.
I've always of course we all love affirmations. We've said it before. But adding it throughout the day helped so like an amount I didn't even know I needed.
I say it throughout
Honestly,
the day. It's just
like-
different ones, but it's
Of course, different ones, but especially
sometimes it
like
can be the same too. I mean, you know,
it just depends. Whatever comes up. And what I started doing as well, someone may find this helpful, is instead of just saying the affirmation, like we'll go with give me an affirmation.
I am enough.
I am enough. Okay. So I could say that in the mirror till I'm purple, right? I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. It doesn't mean shit if I don't believe it.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to say, okay, why am I enough?
Yeah.
And start listing those reasons why I am enough.
That's good.
I do this. I love myself for this reason. I offer this. I'm a great I'm a great friend. Just however you feel about yourself, and that's why. And you just find that why. And that's also a great book, Finding Your Why, by Simon Sinek.
we have a lot of references today.
Right. I know we're an hour in, y'all.
We knew this was going to be long.
Yeah.
We knew it.
There's a lot of good information in here.
It really is. We have a lot of gems. Yes.
I forgot where we were just pointing out. You were pointing out the book.
Find your
Affirmation.
Yeah, I would say for me, I have one morning meditation from this lady. I don't know the name. I just listen to it on a daily basis. I'm not going to say at first that I did feel it.
Yeah.
But eventually, it was every morning I said this thing. And I didn't, honestly, I'm actually in the box of, I wasn't questioning it or writing it. I just liked the way it made me feel. It made me feel like I was starting my day off right. Didn't necessarily believe in every word, but I felt good once I finished it. And that was enough to the point where I could probably now say it, do the whole thing. Maybe not, but it would, it's like a 15-minute affirmation that I could probably now say.
Yeah.
And I do believe that I started to see that in my life occur because I kept saying it over and over again. And I understand, your point, there needs to be the emotional attachment.
Right.
But I think once you start hearing, after you keep doing it, because this is for some people who may be, listening to it now and maybe damn, I don't feel that. I'm not going to listen to it anymore. They just give up naturally. Because I could have given up because I wasn't resonating with it at first. But then after I kept doing it, I started feeling it more and more affect me. But it did take time. It wasn't just one time and I'm like, dang.
Right.
So just for people out there who may find an affirmation thing and be like, oh, it makes me feel good, but I'm maybe not going deep, give it time. You probably will start to feel it and it'll show up in your life. Once I started doing this morning affirmation, I started not having disagreements at work. I started not having the same situations with coworkers again and again appear. It completely fixed my work-life balance because I started off this day with these affirmations. So even if at first you don't feel it, you may start to see it and then start to feel it, because that's what happened with me. I didn't feel it, but it's kept, then it kept showing up and appearing in my day. Wow.
At the end of the day, it is about the emotion behind it and the emotion that is carried with it. So, but I guess I'm just saying that because any ounce of doubt, it's counterproductive.
I would just say try to push through it because you may come out on the other side and overcoming the doubt that you had on it.
But for the people that are
because
I'm not, this ain't hitting, I don't believe this, I'm not gonna, start asking yourself why you are these affirmations. And that could be for many, some, but at the end of the day, emotions, your why, those go into as well believing what you're saying with these new affirmations. Because just to bring it back to your subconscious is not used to these words of life, these words of encouragement. You understanding that your tongue holds a lot of power in what you're saying, and yes, we can say all these things till we're blue in the face, but without the belief, without the emotion behind it, with it, you know, that doubt of of our subconscious, that's always there.
Mm-hmm.
That's cynicism.
Mm-hmm.
That's doubt.
Mm-hmm.
That's there behind it. So what gets pulled in? If you're saying these affirmations with no belief to it, your doubt is what pulls in the opposite of what you're looking for, in my opinion.
No,
Yeah.
can I tell you on a psychology, neuroscience level as well?
Mm-hmm.
When you constantly speak something, now let me preface this with I am not against affirmations. I, however, believe there are benefits in how you use them.
Mm.
When you constantly say something that you do not believe, you actually can create brain damage in your head.
No way.
Absolutely, because
Woo!
Well, I'm glad I
Another bomb.
eventually believed in that.
I wish I
That's
had one of those
good.
DJ like things, like to do the bombs. I would do that right now. Sorry.
yeah, because the way that the cells and the neurons is made up in our brain,
Mhm.
it is literally like they're trying to connect the two dots, and they're just not connecting because you have this disbelief, and then you have this. And I learned this through religion. Because a lot of times you'll have people in religion that are just habitually doing things.
That's true.
Mhm.
And
That would make a lot of sense.
yeah, and they're not actually believing it, but they were taught this is what I say, that whatever.
Mhm.
And when they're not aligning their belief and their actions with these things, it's literally causing damage in the brain. But with that, I will say one way for me that I found benefit, because I initially was doing, when I woke up, I would speak these affirmations. They would make me feel good, yeah, but I can't say I 100% believe them. Now, what I have found that worked for me is using them to change my own narrative in my mind. So, like, I do this constantly. In my mind, I'll have something come up. Oh, I have a thought of fear, right? And I have fear because of, with everything going on, what is my job going to look like, right? So let's take that for example. Instead of what we like to do, we go down a loop-de-loop of all of the things that are going to happen to us. We play out a scenario of you're going to lose your job, you're not going to have no money, I'm going to be homeless, and you end up in all of these insecurities. Instead, the moment I have this fear, I use the affirmations to say, you are fine, you are secure, you are stable, this is why this is going to work out, you are exactly where you need to be, you are going to be guided in the right step. So now I've used them in a way that I've talked myself out of this downward spiral. And it's like having a conversation with a friend. When somebody points out or encourages you and you be like, I do believe that. But you need to hear it sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's no one around but yourself. And that's why it's learning how to change your own inner narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. I feel like for, like, in terms of, like, just the affirmation, I guess for me, it clicked. And then, like I said, it's not... I don't know, it just started showing up, like my days got easier the more that I was saying them. And like I said, at first it didn't resonate, but then when I started feeling better, and then, like if I didn't do that affirmation, I would be like, oh man, work wasn't... I'm not saying that, like, I did not, like, use it every day now. It's like, sometimes I still go back. But, as I started to not need it every day, because I didn't, then there were some days where I was like, I could have really used that because, my day would shift because of that mental positive mindset, or just that it was a lot about being grateful and having gratitude to start off my morning. So maybe it was like a mix of affirmation and a mix of gratitude to it, which is...
Gratitude is very powerful.
Yeah, so I think there was a little bit of that in there too. So it started showing up, and that's why I personally started believing in it.
Well, I think it's good to go through, and maybe if there's a book that has them or you're hearing them on the video, it's good to have that because it is showing you a new way to talk to yourself that you may previously not have known. And I'm a big believer in have your gun loaded, so when the moment happens that you need to talk to yourself better,
you have that in
you have it already loaded. You don't have to feel like, well,
stay ready so you don't get it.
Exactly. Because a lot of people they'll go through the moment of like hitting that dark place, and now they're like, what do I do? No, like already be prepared. Like I've already learned new ways to talk to myself. Now I can implement them.
True.
And I like knowing a lot of affirmations too.
Yeah.
Just as kind of a guide for me to say my own, write my own that are perfectly tailored to me.
Right.
Like, you know,
one thing that I was doing, because I switch, right? I don't consistently do the one thing over and I get bored. So
course.
I mean, I do multiple different things. But at one point, I was just opening the Bible and just picking up a story and then figuring out, okay, what's an affirmation I can pair for myself? Like, what did I get out of that story, and how can I pair an affirmation with it? And it was really, I was really enjoying it, because it's nice when you can start creating your own that, like, kind of align with, like, what I'm feeling like God wants me to hear for the day. Because it was like I just randomly opened the book and read something that my finger was on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want that.
Yeah. All right.
So,
Challenge.
do we want to talk about last week's challenge?
Well, I'll hand that back to Nina, since she touched on that a little bit earlier.
Oh, okay. So last week's challenge was to be aware of ourselves, and, you know, if we're being triggered, you know, how are we feeling? What are the emotions coming up for us? And how do we sit with it, or how are we reacting or responding?
Nice.
I mentioned mine, right?
Yeah, you did.
So I don't need to say it. So you could.
Why are we whispering?
You're right.
Right.
I really wanted to look at the camera to see how you looked. Like,
We'll find out. I'm sure it'll be great.
I never understand that.
Oh my gosh. All right. Observing myself last week. This is the part I may like actually cry. So just be patient with me. But don't touch me. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
I'm just kidding. So last week, something happened with miscommunication, and it was okay, because in the moment, like, I knew what to do, like, what steps to take and all of that, and detach kind of from it, but I kept feeling like this sense, like, I need to cry.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen at all. And until one day, I was just literally, and I told you about it.
A what?
Nothing. I told Donnie about it.
Oh, okay. I was like, I didn't hear anything you just said.
Your face took me all out of it. You know what?
I'm glad I didn't make you cry.
And it was, I was driving around kind of just like, okay, like asking myself those questions, like, well, why does this affect me in the way that it does? Why do I have this feeling right now? And all of those things. And it was like an aha moment, almost, of still holding on to the way a person talked to me, about me. Still, it was kind of clear, like, I didn't work through this healing as deep as I thought I did. And I started taking it out on these different relationships with people. And I'm talking about not feeling comfortable being vulnerable, because I was yelled at. I was mushed in the face. I was pushed around. At one point, I feared for my freaking life. I don't like getting into conflict with people, because I'm just expecting that on the other end of it. I don't like disagreements, because I'm expecting that on the other end of it. And it really challenged me to think, like, I was like, no, I never liked conflict, but then I really looked at some relationships that I had, especially before I was put in, those circumstances. I did speak up. I did speak my mind. I truly didn't give any fucks. Like, let's be honest. And I carried that with me in my mental space and continuing to make myself smaller. Continuing to, it's like I, like knew my worth, like I know what I'm worth, but still tiptoeing around it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my observation.
Yours was really deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I was happy for it. I sat in the car and I cried and I cried and I cried for like a good couple hours. It was 2:30 to 5:30. Like, I just sat in my car and just let it out. And I was very grateful that I wasn't grateful that I was driving when I wanted to start crying and whatnot, but I was very grateful because the tears didn't come for like a good 4 days.
Yeah.
That I just felt that on top of me, and it was also refreshing in a weird way that it was that it came from, not me just being like a little crybaby, like every 28 days again. Which I'm just kidding. But yeah, it felt good afterwards, to be completely honest. Yes, it felt good in identifying, like, oh my God, like that's where it started. So even identifying things that, like you said, it doesn't have to be this big, old, complicated thing, that didn't come from childhood or my parents or a generational thing. That just came from last Tuesday. Not last Tuesday, but, like just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And so now it's like the moving forward from that realization.
Mm-hmm.
But we're proud of you.
Very
I didn't cry.
Cry squad.
We rolling deep. Oh,
You should get jackets.
I can't wear that jacket.
That would be hilarious.
No, that's from Greece when they got the pink lady.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's like a
We
thing.
should get jackets.
Yeah.
I'm down for the jacket.
Oh, now you are.
Right.
I mean, who doesn't want a jacket?
That says Cry Squad?
No.
What do you want to say on your jacket?
I don't know.
I don't cry.
Highness squad. I mean, I cry,
Right.
but it's not in the same way.
Can't make a detached person a hater. I don't know. You wish.
So I'll say what I observed. Well, number one, y'all know I felt like I am older trying to learn this whole TikTok thing. Okay. So now my 30 something tail be like on TikTok like, oh, this is incredible. But now I found myself somehow I got into spiritual TikTok and I went down a rabbit hole and I don't know how I got down there.
How deep are you?
So far.
Okay.
It's
Do you know what's real and what's not anymore?
That's what I had to observe, honestly, because I was so far gone into this, like, and it was making me fearful, honestly.
Wow.
It was, because
Yeah.
somehow I found myself in conspiracy theory TikTok.
Ooh.
And I don't know how that is my For You page, okay? First of all, how did I get there?
I understand it because I get the same
It-
stuff on mine when I look up that
I
stuff.
think they send it to everyone in the
Yeah,
spiritual
I guess,
community.
but-
Yeah, it's somehow attached to like
Yeah.
nonconformists.
Yeah.
And see, I
Like,
love to learn new things.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're like teaching these like crazy
Mhm.
things, I'm like, oh,
But
this
they're not
is
real,
incredible.
some of them.
But that's the thing, right?
Right.
So I do believe there's a balance of being informed. Okay, so there is a thing as being informed, and there's a thing as too much information. And I was going to the spectrum of like information overload that it was causing me to be fearful just because of what I was intaking, what I was watching over and over and over. I was like, oh my God, I gotta like get outside and like plant a garden right now because tomorrow things are, you know, like I was like on the extreme, and I had to realize and observe, monitor what I'm intaking. So that was my thing, and I had to shut it down.
It's really hard when you get into the TikTok spin.
It is.
Because it's hours and hours. I feel like it's probably, well, for me, it's one of the best forms of, outlets. But also, it's probably the one I watch the least. Right? I use it the most because I do my tarot on TikTok. But I don't tend to watch a lot. One, because I don't really want to watch people doing what I'm doing. So that, and they like to push that on me. So I don't really like to do that. And then two, it's just like, I don't know. Now, at first it felt like people were being original. But now it sometimes feels like everyone's trying to do the same thing. And that's what I wonder, just like a side thing from this, is like I just kind of wonder how TikTok's going to trend, because I just feel like the reason why people like TikTok so much was because you thought people were just putting their random, genuine selves out there. Yeah. But now there's this algorithm that if we all follow this trend, and I get it, not everyone's going to do the same trend the same. So I get that. But there's also the worry of like building up. Well, I will say that I do think people are still a little bit more original than on Instagram. Like for me, I don't know how you guys feel. I just feel like with Instagram, it's like, let me build this dream life. And that's not everyone. Some people have really great, informative Instagrams. But there is that Instagram lifestyle where it's like, here's the life you could have. And I just feel like it's just crazy how there's a utopia within our world, like, because it is a utopia when we think about it. Like, you're spending all this time looking at Instagram, and really you could be creating that life yourself. But instead, we're building profiles to build a life for ourselves out here. But the question is, like, I just have to talk to maybe some Instagram people who are high up there. It's like, when do you draw the line, though? Like, are you really living a real life, or are you really living, like, the Instagram life?
Majority of people are not.
And they have to create all these stories over and over again, and they have to create all this content. Like, I get it. Like, being a content creator is hard. But then I just think, like, for me, like, maybe one of the reasons why I am so detached from it is because sometimes I wonder, like, would I really be living a life if I had to constantly give to people through a screen and not actually experience the real life reality of what it is that I'm trying to give?
Well, another thing you have to look at is what sells, as far as like what makes people go to certain heights in those social media worlds is usually not authentic, unfortunately. Yeah. Just like when people go and they'll go on eBay and buy these name brand boxes to have in their backgrounds or under their trees or whatever, just to make a look and take a picture and post. And I personally wouldn't want to live that life. I just want to be authentic.
Yeah. Right. I wouldn't want to do that either. And it's like, I feel like I would have severe problems living my real life, and then anxiety that I'm not doing enough.
That was a huge theme for me this year, is authenticity. Like, because to a lot of people, and now that we're having this conversation on Instagram, like, I get it, like, authenticity really does equate to freedom. Yeah. Like, because of all of these just inauthentic things that surround us, like, day to freaking day. Like, there's inauthentic food being sold in billions, trillions of units across the world. Like, y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yes, I do. I know what you're talking about. Just don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
I ain't saying no names.
I think it's important to also, like, remember that these are qualities that, like, you have, that we all have, and, like, remembering that these are good qualities that I think sometimes, like, even myself, like, I overlook. Like, I'm proud of myself that I don't get too far into the social media realm. I could, but I don't, because I value, like, this life, not the life on the screen. And, these people tell you, and what I mean is, like, marketers, like, you got to commit 100 and 100 and 100 and 100, and it's like, how much did you give? Like, where's the balance? Like, why do we have to believe, like, there's literally the thing, and we all heard of it, you had to give up your soul. Yeah. And it's like, I actually question that, and it's like, not necessarily that these people had a contract with the devil and did it, but like not like that, like so
I used to think
a
it
cult?
was specifically that
But I
for
think-
the longest.
But
yeah.
I think it's actually just giving so much of yourself to create this performer.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're performing, we're putting on this thing. It's not really who we are. Like, I mean, yes, you can be as genuine and as authentic that you're putting yourself out there. But there's just parts of you, especially on a screen or a camera, someone's just not gonna know. And so it's like being authentic with yourself is a quality that you could admire, that you just, like, even myself, like, I take for granted sometimes. I don't think of that as a quality, even though it's one I try to live every day, but I don't acknowledge.
And it's so rare. But that's the thing that sucks, because they put people that want to be authentic in such a bad or hard space.
They honestly make them look crazy a lot of the times.
Well, yeah, but just like when we go back to the algorithm, so let's say that you're a business owner and you're trying to promote your stuff, or you're trying to do your content and you're trying to be authentic, but now your stuff doesn't get views because it's not trending. So it's like they force you into this box of having to do a certain thing like everyone else, which sucks. And I think there's a balance of let me have fun with it, and then there's the balance of having faith that the people that are meant to come in will be drawn to that. And it's doing both. And I've always said that to myself, especially in this process. I always want us to have fun doing what the moment that it's not enjoyable, like, oh, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
We did agree on that from day one, for sure.
So what's the challenge for this week?
So, great transition, by the way.
Wrap it up.
She said next.
You do not need to see my face again. Go to that like gone space that I went to.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so kind of rewind to the challenge. We observed ourselves during the week, and that could have been anything. Mine was super deep. Tawny's was hilarious. Like,
wow, way to level us out here. Like, what?
I had a rough time with my
Mine is not great at all.
she ordered seeds. Anyway.
Okay, but look, y'all be coming to me when y'all hungry though.
I sure will. What you mean? But we observed our week. We dealt with that. However we dealt with that, all we wanted you to do was observe these moments in the week where you were tried, challenged. If you had a great week, journaling that out. Hopefully you're still keeping that up. For this week's challenge, we want to challenge each of you to pause for a moment. If you have any of the emotions that we've talked about, or say a repeat of things that you went through, triggers, flashbacks, whatever the case may be, we want you to really, really just pause and take a step back and sit with yourself. And we say that because we want to start replacing these negative habits, these
the habits.
We don't want you to go back into negative ways of doing things, negative coping mechanisms.
Negative coping mechanisms.
Coping mechanisms. I never thought. I'm usually okay. I'm usually okay saying.
And maybe outlining what those are if you maybe haven't acknowledged some of them. Writing out how do you cope.
Yeah.
And start maybe seeing which ones. That's not maybe the most healthy ones.
Exactly. So like sometimes, like one of my coping mechanisms is making a joke out of everything.
A lot of people, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Isn't that a good thing?
I mean,
not all the time.
I wouldn't say no, but like the day I went to get some of the rest of my things out of my ex's house, like we won't get into it, because I might have to call him after that. I'm just kidding. Like the first thing I said to my brother was a joke.
Yeah.
in the car, and I couldn't. I don't know. Like looking back, I was just like, oh, like if no one else knew me, they'd be like, how tacky is that?
Mhm.
But in in the same sense, like it was just me not wanting to even deal with what just happened, and I didn't for a very long time.
Yeah, deflect, and also it's a way of trying to make other people comfortable because you try to beat them to the punch. So you just say a joke, and you're helping to create a comfortability so that they're not having a pressure of now saying something to you.
I don't
And
do
that
that,
makes
but that
sense.
makes a lot of
It
sense.
does, and like taking off the pressure of you don't have to make me feel better. I already feel better.
Yeah, but in reality, most times you don't.
I was not.
Yeah.
I was not okay. So instead of doing things of that nature, we really want you to sit with yourself, sit with your feelings, let those emotions fly and soar, baby. We was just talking about being authentic and that being freedom. So we really want y'all to experience that and also identify what you just said. Identify those coping mechanisms and the feelings that are coming with it. And I promise, just one time in the week, just try it out and your future self will thank you. And that is everything for this episode.
So make sure that you follow us on whatever your preferred platform is, whether you're listening on audio, whether you're watching on YouTube. Follow us, subscribe, share it, all those lovely things.
Oh, I love it.
And buy you some merch, because we got t-shirts. She has it on right here. Listen when the highness talk, Get your merch.
More coming soon.
Yes.
Bye, guys.
Oh,
Every single time.
Bye.